Introduction to the Wudang Song Qingshu of Jin Yong's Heroes. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. What is the first reaction for people traveling through the world of novels now? What do you say about finding opportunities? So where is the vast sea of Peach Blossom Island? Where is Xianxia Island? At which step should Jinlong's chess game be filled in by herself? What should I do if I want to be the protagonist but don't have a protagonist aura? I'm in a hurry to wait online. This is an effort to break free from the original fate. https://www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Wedge Snow Night Killer. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the heavy snow fell from the darkness, and the night dyed it black. The wind blew like a pile of cotton wool, covering this desperate street. Under the eaves, two swaying red lanterns cast a snowy shadow. The pure ice and snow in people's eyes are like elves, but they do not know that the color given by the night and the red light will fade away after tonight. Riding alone from the snowy night, breaking the cold, the sound of horse hooves sounded, and the hazy and ambiguous world briefly became clearer. The sound of hooves falling, the pitch-black streets and alleys returning to chaos, falling together like stepping on the beating heart of someone unknown, accompanied by a red cloak falling under the light. At the end of the street, there are two red lights, like the eyes of a sick beast. Under the red light, a figure suddenly stood up and ran into the door. Behind this tall door, snow fell silently and the lights were dim. A tall man with an iron whip hanging from his waist took big steps through the courtyard and entered a large hall with a wide open door. The wind and snow stirred the flames, and there was a group of silent people in the lobby. People sit and stand, leaning against pillars, holding knives, leaning on swords, drinking tea, drinking alcohol, watching the wind and snow outside the door, the candles inside the door, and the palm prints on their own palms, all remain silent. The tall man arched his hand silently at the person sitting in the hall, who also responded with a fist, but his serious expression remained unchanged. The man bowed his hand to the crowd around him, and the response he received was only a silent salute. A servant suddenly rushed in panic and said, "Sir, the guest has arrived." The old man, sitting in the front seat, frowned. He did look a bit old, even though he was wearing a blue and black satin suit with a tiger embroidered on it with gold thread. But his graying temples and beard still showed his age. The master did not respond anxiously to the servant, but first signaled for the tall man who had just entered the room to sit down before looking out the door. In the open courtyard, there was a person who had stood there at some point, alone and out of place with the hidden rockeries, waxberries, and evergreen trees in the darkness. Wearing a thick red cloak, behind it lies a vast snowy night and a sky that can never be seen with the naked eye. The old man stood up and walked to the door, looking up at the eaves above his head. Raising one hand, the gold dot-plated jade ring on the hand under the light was stunned and said, "You are truly a person from the mountain. You are so brave and admirable. Since you have come to my mansion, why not have a bowl of water and wine to warm your body first?" The servant was already trembling and holding the tray, standing 5 steps away from the red cloak, but unfortunately he only shook his head. The old man laughed and said, "Are you afraid the wine is poisonous?" He remained silent. The martial arts world is treacherous, and it is common for people to compete with each other. Since we are experts on the mountain, why bother meddling in the affairs of us ordinary people? The old man said expressionlessly, as the crowd inside the house silently walked out of the door and scattered in the courtyard, resembling a day's stars. "I heard that the Wu family traded a Changqing tower for you. It's okay, as long as you step back tonight, the Changqing tower will still be yours. I will also give you a mountain villa, 10 beautiful family members, 100 acres of fertile land, and 10,000 taels of gold as gifts." The red cloak remained silent, and the wind howled as it hunted with a loud red cloak. "Don't consider it." The old man had a reluctant expression on his face. Are you really not considering it? Ah, there's nothing we can do. The old man raised his hand and waved the hand lamp vigorously. Several strings of red lights were hung in the courtyard at the same time, like flags facing the wind, rising to the top of a high lamp post, casting a layer of crimson radiance over the courtyard. It was only then that people could see the abrupt red cloak standing in the middle of the yard, just a beautiful teenager in his teens, with clear eyebrows, beautiful eyes, and a lazy expression, and a long sword hanging from his waist. I turned out to be a newcomer, Mr. Zhang. You're too cautious, right? The tall man who had previously walked into the lobby with a relaxed smile as he strode towards the young man, still bowing his hand. The 8 treasures of Jin Yong. I'm not interested in knowing who you are. The young man shook his head and spoke for the first time, his voice clear and pleasant, just with a faint Hubei accent. Xiaoxiang's son, dressed in fresh clothes and wielding a long sword, makes one wonder if this is a young lady disguised as a man. The younger generation is unreasonable. The tall man took off his iron whip and opened his posture to attack the young man with a shawl. The young man didn't dodge or dodge, only took half a step forward, raised his hands, and placed one hand on the man's wrist holding an iron whip, while the other hand gently pressed against his chest. The wind and snow suddenly stopped. The iron whip whizzed and spun as it flew out, landing forcefully on the stone slab not far in front of Mr. Zhang. The tall man slowly collapsed at the young man's feet, stirring up a snowstorm. Under the red light, everything was so clear and real, and everyone just felt that the weather was getting colder. Let's go together. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out from the crowd, and the quiet courtyard became noisy, surging like a boiling tide like a teenager. People are like this. You can't stand up as a hero alone, you might as well mix in with the crowd and become a bear. However, a silver light shone in front of the young man, and his long sword was unsheathed with a clanging sound. He seems to be at the bow of the Xianxia river, letting the tide surge, and I will break it with my own sword. Transformed into towering reefs in the middle of the river, letting those elusive waves shatter in front of me, becoming blood-red waves spraying onto the young man's cloak one after another. For a long time, the sound of fighting stopped without any warning, and the survivors gasped for breath, maintaining a subtle distance from the young man. The young man held a sword with one hand and looked around. Hey, where's Mr. Zhang? The people in the courtyard only realized that Mr. Zhang, who had just stood on the steps in front of the hall, had disappeared, and the servants holding the lamp were also nowhere to be seen. The iron whip stuck on the ground also disappeared together. The young man didn't pay attention to the reactions of others and jumped onto the high lamp post, as if he had stepped up a step. Then, he jumped off the lamp post and swept towards the high ridge of the lobby, disappearing from people's sight. The people in the yard looked at each other. Is this the swordsman from the mountain? It was too cold, and Mr. Zhang felt his hands tremble. He rode his horse and ran on the snow. As long as he left the city, he would be safe. Is this the swordsman who came down from the mountain? It's too strong, I guess. Poisoning was exposed, sneak attacks were countered, and I'm not close to women. The various skilled players he had won for decades gathered together, but they couldn't stop him for a few rounds. Mr. Zhang clenched the reins in his hand. Such a powerful person would definitely not take me as a small person seriously. After tonight, I will be safe, and once I leave the city, I will be safe. At the end of the road is a sea of clouds, deep within which there must be a bright moon. Mr. Zhang comforted himself, and his heart constantly filled with longing for the fields and old houses left in his hometown. I'll retire to the martial arts world in the latter half of my life. Are you really old? Mr. Zhang felt that his illusory ambition had been put down in the moment when a silver light appeared in the yard. Is this putting down the butcher's knife and becoming a Buddha on the spot? Buddha bless you, if you can escape from heaven today, I will definitely reshape your golden body when I come back. Perhaps not devout enough or running too slowly, the Buddha did not bless Mr. Zhang. From here, you can already see the towering city walls of Zhangjiakou. At the end of the road, there is a boy wearing a red cloak. If it were a sunny day, you could already see the towering city gate of Zhangjiakou from here. The defenders who have already managed in Mr. Zhang's plan will leave him a way out. Mr. Zhang can't walk over just a short distance. Why do we have to exterminate everything? Isn't it just a Changqing tower? I'll give more. You swordsmen on the mountain, why do you want to interfere in our ordinary people's affairs? If you say you want anything, I'll give it to you. Mr. Zhang sat on horseback and roared. The boy slowly approached step by step, still unwilling to speak. You say it. You're talking. It's a big deal. I'll return the Wu family's property to the Wu family, and I'll never appear in Zhangjiakou again. Can you please let me have a way out? The panicked Mr. Zhang roared, others don't know I know, I've checked everything, and I know your identity, but I haven't told anyone. Wudang has always been known for chivalry. Please let me have a way out. Mr. Zhang jumped off the horse and threw away the iron whip he picked up in the yard. You can't even take action against an unarmed old man. Mo Chi. Xia, please have a large quantity, sir. Pop. He only received a slap in the face. First of all, my surname is Song. Secondly, put away your routine and it looks disgusting. Mr. Zhang opened his eyes wide with an incredulous expression on his face and said, Song. Finally, sigh, the young man sighed leisurely, I wasn't brought by the Wu family. I hesitated for a moment just now. Before coming tonight, I asked myself if it was worth it, right? I also asked myself, what would be the consequences if I didn't do it? Mr. Zhang widened his eyes and stared at the young man's lips. But now, I only have half the answer, the young man frowned. If I don't do this, I will be the one who will die. Perhaps it wasn't for Mr. Zhang's clever use of a few assassinations, which inexplicably dragged him into the struggle between the Zhang and Wu families. He should still be wandering aimlessly in this muddy city full of snow that he first met. The boy thought so, but didn't say anything. Mr. Zhang seemed to see the hazy city tower in the distance, looking for the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to collapse in a great war. Mr. Zhang fell and sat on the snow, it was very cold. His face was so cold that it made him shiver all over. He wanted to bake a fire, but his eyes couldn't find a trace. Can I make a small request before I die? I know you are a well-known figure on the mountain, and I am not your opponent. Can you use your long sword? Mr. Zhang tried his best to appear calm and energetic. But snowflakes falling on his head made him look older. Let's skip this. I think the news of Mr. Zhang accidentally falling off his horse while enjoying the snow tomorrow morning would be more embarrassing for the Zhang family. The young man waved his palm lightly and lightly imprinted it on Mr. Zhang's chest. Suddenly, Mr. Zhang raised his hand, and the gold inlaid texture pattern on his finger turned into a standing half-finger long blade, killing enough. Combined with the jade trigger, the jade is stunning. The young man panicked and withdrew his palm to dodge. Surprisingly, Mr. Zhang did not launch any further attacks. The young man noticed that Mr. Zhang's emerald green trigger sword had pierced his chest, leaving only blood spraying on his red cloak. Mr. Zhang exhausted all his strength and asked, are you really here to help the Wu family? Are you really not Mo Chi from Wudang? The young man raised his hand and looked seriously at the old man with more exhalation and less intake. He gently pressed his hand on the old man's head, slowly and gently, as if trying to caress his unwilling eyes. Then Mr. Zhang really closed his eyes and completely lost his breath. The young man suddenly felt a chill. 10 years later, perhaps he would end up like this, dying under the gentle palm of Wudang. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but feel cold. He took off his cloak, shook it in the wind and snow, and floated down on Mr. Zhang's body, as gentle as snow. Not really. First of all, my surname is Song. I came to Zhangjiakou just to wait for someone. Chapter 1. Changqing Building in Zhangjiakou. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhangjiakou has not been peaceful this year, with several major events happening one after another. Firstly, the largest restaurant in the city, Changqing Tower, suddenly announced its closure, followed by several homicide cases. Some people said it was a martial arts war, while others said it was a bandit who was punished by the great heroes. In the end, no one reported the incident, and even the government did not care much about it. Later on, the most sensational event occurred when the largest wealthy man in the city, Zhang Dashan, accidentally fell off his horse while enjoying the snow. The Zhang family held several water and land dojo ceremonies and invited high-ranking scholars and great monks to pray and recite scriptures for Zhang Dashan. As the new year approached, accompanied by a continuous storm and snow for more than 10 days, the warm sun brushed aside the dark clouds and shone on the poor, instantly warming them up a lot. On the 27th day of the first lunar month, amidst the sound of firecrackers, Changqing Building reopened, attracting both former customers and impoverished people who have never been able to afford to spend their entire lives here. It seems that I want to use this sound of firecrackers not only to dispel the bad luck of this year, but also to add more discussion to the wine party in the future. On the day of the opening of Changqing Building, I was on the scene, and you didn't see that grandeur. On the day when the largest restaurant in the city reopened, both inside and outside the building were bustling with people. In a corner upstairs, a handsome young man was lying on a rocking chair, holding a teapot in one hand, closing his eyes and humming an unknown song in a low voice, as if isolated from the bustling world. 2 days ago, Mr. Wu personally held the land deed of Changqing Building and sat opposite this rocking chair. Senior Brother Song, put a seal on this land deed, and you are the owner of this Changqing Building. Mr. Wu is a chubby man with a beard that is not much wrinkled on his face. Compared to Mr. Zhang, who was killed by his palm, Mr. Wu is more like a businessman, a very shrewd businessman. The young man took the land deed book and instinctively read it word by word, only to be stunned halfway through. He suddenly thought that reading contracts like this was a habit left over from a previous life. Shouldn't the young martial arts master not even look at them and sign his name with just a stroke of his pen? Thinking of this, the young man laughed. Senior Brother Song, have you noticed anything wrong? Mr. Wu asked himself. I didn't dare to tamper with this land deed. The young master in front of me, who looks only 18 or 19 years old, is from the mountain, and he doesn't have the courage to deceive him. Like the old rival Zhang, who dares to provoke this master without understanding anything, hasn't it been buried for just a few days? Oh, nothing, young Master Song shook his head with a smile, it's just that I can't quite understand. Ah, it doesn't matter if you don't understand this. It's all about the lowly livelihood of some merchants. Why don't the shopkeeper come over and explain it to Senior Brother Song? After discussing it, it's better for the merchants to understand. Mr. Wu smiled apologetically. Forget it, the shopkeeper is busy with the business opening. It's not a problem, that's it. Young Master Song placed the land deed on the small coffee table. Where's the ink? Mr. Wu wiped the cold sweat that fell from his forehead to the second crease on his face. It was a young man's nature. He respectfully held the ink and watched as Mr. Song took out a small seal and pressed it onto the land deed. For ancient and simple vermilion seal characters stand out in the eyes, Song Qingshu. In this way, young Master Song peacefully moved into the Changqing Tower, with a rocking chair and a cup of tea. He closed his eyes and waited quietly for the opening of his first restaurant in 2 lifetimes, while also waiting for someone he had never seen before. Dang dang dang, the shopkeeper took small steps and came to young Master Song's rocking chair, the owner. Young Master Song opened his eyes and saw the black-faced and capable shopkeeper in his 40s holding a large stack of accounts and abacus standing in front of him. Sit down, young Master Song gestured to the shopkeeper to sit down and speak. Don't worry, boss, stand up and speak quickly. The shopkeeper smiled and began flipping through the account books, starting from yesterday's trial business flow, to today's expected guest seating arrangements, and other major and minor matters. The sound of calculations crackled, and the sound of pages being searched for. The big shopkeeper is actually strange. The young owner seems to be at the age of the wealthy young master's mischievous behavior. However, since he officially became the new owner of this restaurant, this young master has set a new rule and listens to the accounts every day. That's right, he does. Young Master Song still shook his head, sitting on a rocking chair, occasionally sipping a cup of fragrant tea. But the shopkeeper read it meticulously, without daring to make any mistakes. Because this seemingly careless owner actually listens very attentively. Whenever there is a contradiction in the accounts, the owner can immediately detect it. This made the shopkeeper secretly grateful that he had always been down to earth and serious in his work, although he had also felt that perhaps his young employer was just a formality. But he never shows any carelessness in his actions, which is also the secret why he was able to become the chief shopkeeper of Changqing building from a young man. This secret helped him once again, and he found that his employer not only listened attentively, but also had an amazing memory. Even 2 or 3 days ago, he could recall the accounts word for word. The same goes for those trivial chores at zhaoshuyuan.com. In short, as long as they are read from his mouth, the owner will remember them in his heart. This also makes the shopkeeper nervous and more moved and respected. After a cup of tea, the shopkeeper finished reading all that was supposed to be said. "Boss, that's all. We're still busy with the opening earlier, so I'll go over first." The big shopkeeper has worked hard. Young Master Song opened his eyes and watched as the big shopkeeper straightened his back and went downstairs without looking back. With a smile, he shouted loudly, "By the way, let Huzi come." The shopkeeper went downstairs, which slightly calmed the little nervousness in young Master Song's heart. He didn't really care about this Changqing building, but when it really became his own business, he couldn't help feeling a little nervous. Even the little nervousness in my heart is a way for the young master to comfort himself and relieve his emotions. As the owner, I dare not even watch the opening ceremony, but in fact, I am already nervous. Not long after the shopkeeper left, a young man named Huzi rushed to the young master in 3 or 2 steps and said, "Master, please call me." Master Song stood up from the rocking chair and thought, "That's all for today's memory training. Let's go out and take a walk." Huzi, at the age of 15 or 16, is half a head shorter than young Master Song. His 2 round eyes sparkle with shrewdness. If he were to hold a bird cage and stand on the street next to young Master Song, he would really look like a dog leg. The 2 of them just went to Hengdian to play a pair of cruel masters and servants who bullied men and women. It's safe, young Master Song thought. However, what young Master Song said about turning around was not going out, but circling around in a corner of the building, inspecting tables, chairs, benches, porch armrests. Changqing Restaurant is the largest restaurant in Zhangjiakou. Carved beams and painted rafters restaurant is full of jewels. When you come in and sit in, you will feel the superiority of the rich. Chapter 2. The Gentleman's Faraway Cooking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, young Master Song checks every day, and he checks very carefully. He asks Huzi to be by his side to record the problems he discovers. This can make Huzi, who is not very literate, scratch his head with worry. Didn't he hear that his boss has a particularly good memory? What else should I remember about the problem you discovered? However, the owner always smiled without answering this question. Later, Huzi discovered that the big shopkeeper remembered the accounts when reading them to the owner, but the owner often forgot what he had said. There's no way, I've never served such a strange boss before. Young Master Song has never run a restaurant in his lifetime, nor in his previous life. Check the details of every corner of the restaurant every day. To be honest, it's not for business. Why? Just because young Master Song arrived in Zhangjiakou at the beginning of last year and was soon involved in the struggle between the wealthy Zhang and Wu families in Zhangjiakou, with continuous poisoning and assassination, now young Master Song is particularly careful about his residence. Taking a leisurely stroll in this luxurious restaurant, it seemed that nothing was amiss today. Wuxia was also relatively relaxed and said, "Master, I can't speak, but there's one thing I'm not sure about." "Oh." Young Master Song also became playful as he listened to Wuxia's half-hearted play. "What's unclear, but it's okay to say it. How could there be a reason why the owner didn't show up at this grand opening ceremony? Is that right?" Young Master Song turned around and leaned against the railing. The sunlight shone through the skylight, revealing his delicate facial features with sharp edges. The gentle breeze blew the black hair hanging from his temples, and his smile was both gentle and intoxicating. Wuxia couldn't help but be a bit stunned, and only then did he realize, that's it. When it comes to being a person, one should keep a low profile. Remember that the owner on the surface of Changqing Tower is still the Wu family, and I am just one of the many joint venture owners. Young Master Song nodded seriously as he watched Wuxia take note. "Go to the kitchen and have a look," said young Master Song happily. Still going. Young Master Song patrols the building every morning, and Wuxia has been with him for several days. If Wuxia is the least willing place to go, the toilet can only be ranked second, while the kitchen has to be ranked first. Reasoning, is it reasonable? There really is. Wuxia pushed open the kitchen door, and young Master Song walked into the back kitchen with great strides. He stopped in front of the door, not wanting to stop, but unable to walk further inside. An old man sat at the entrance, holding a cigarette bag in one hand and pulling a bench, with a gloomy and impatient expression on his face. This person is the #1 boss of Changqing Tower, surnamed Zhou. When it comes to cooking skills, he ranks second in all the restaurants in Zhangjiakou. Who dares to say first? In terms of seniority, he is also the first person in the culinary profession in Zhangjiakou. To put it bluntly, half of the kitchen in Zhangjiakou is the disciple and grandson of this old man Zhou. However, this person has great abilities and high seniority, so he also has a big temper. When young Master Song first came, he was pushed back by this person. "Master Zhou, this is the new owner of the restaurant. Mr. Song." The big shopkeeper was also with him that day. "Oh, my boss, haven't you tried the dishes? If there's anything we can say outside, let's talk about it." The old man knocked his cigarette bag and was about to get up. "The owner wants to visit the kitchen," the shopkeeper said cautiously. The old man's eyes widened like copper bells, and as soon as he stood up, he sat back down. "The kitchen is not a garden for hiking and admiring flowers, it's not very beautiful. If the owner has nothing to do, please go back." "Well, it's not a big deal. Even if Master Zhou doesn't give me face, it's good to give the boss face." The shopkeeper knew this would happen, so he had already figured out how to say it. "I'll give you face, who'll give me face?" As the sages have said, a gentleman can cook from afar. I see that the young and handsome young master in the master's family is just a scholar, so it's better not to look at the kitchen. The old man has been dealing with oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar for his whole life, and he understands better than anyone what it means to have no oil or salt in. "Master, according to the rules of our industry, the one with the big head is the largest in the kitchen. No matter who you are, when you come to the kitchen, you have to listen to the big head. It seems that as long as a horse is on the road, the big head is the largest. These are all rules passed down from our ancestors. I hope the master can understand." Both sides advised that this was also within the plan of the big head. "Alright," similar to the head chef, young Master Song peeked and observed. "Since it's a rule in the industry, I won't ask too much. Just to add, if the kitchen uses knives, fires, or washes, everyone should pay more attention to safety and be clean and hygienic. We must treat our guests well. The boss said it well. When the basket is out, I'll hold on to old Zhou's head. The boss won't give it away. Old Zhou didn't even look at it and turned his head to smoke. So Wuxia still remembers the last incident vividly, but the owner still goes to the kitchen every day to take a look, which has evolved into what it is now. Pushing open the door, the old man Zhou had already set up the bench, and the golden sword was blocking the door. Good morning, Master Zhou. Young Master Song was in a good mood. The old man silently smoked. Wuxia wanted to go up and speak up, but was startled by the old man's glare and then retreated. Young Master Song didn't say much today. He went to the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com to meet the old man's shining eyes and slowly walked over. He bent down and whispered a few words in the old man's ear, then turned around and left. However, when Wuxia saw the old man's incredulous expression of surprise, he didn't know how much trouble the kitchen would cause in the future. Mr. Song didn't rush upstairs as he walked out of the kitchen. Instead, he sat at the nearest table and poured a cup of tea, slowly drinking it. Boss, Wuxia pouted with his sparkling big eyes full of curiosity, but the young master only raised a finger in front of his lips. With a click, the door of the kitchen was roughly pushed open, and old Zhou rushed in a fit of anger. When he saw the young master's knees soften, he was about to bow down. This was a big surprise for young Master Song. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and raised his palms, so old Zhou couldn't kneel down anymore. Boss, come and check the kitchen at any time. I won't stop you, I'm sorry. Old Zhou's attitude suddenly took a 180-degree turn, and Tiger was dumbfounded. By the way, I'll get rid of that stinky kid right now. Zhou Laofa couldn't kneel down now, so he decided not to kneel and walked away. But as soon as I stepped out, I felt my hand being held by young Master Song. The grip was neither tight nor painful, but I couldn't pull it out. Young Master Song stood up and once again whispered a few words in the old man's ear before releasing his hand. For a moment, the old man's face was as if he had practiced a great movement of heaven and earth, red, green, blue, and purple, brilliant and colorful. After changing for a long time, I slowly walked back with a shy expression on my face. Master, can you say it this time? Wuxia couldn't care about any formalities anymore, and his curiosity now belongs to the whole world. Okay, said young Master Song as he walked, continuing his tour of the building with a swaying motion. Actually, what I told him was that there were 2 unwashed rags in the oil pot, and he had to handle them himself. Chapter 3. There are experts in the martial arts world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, how did you tell it was so far away? Wuxia exclaimed in surprise. It's no use being close, the lid is covering the pot, said young Master Song. How did you know? I let it go. The second time I told Master Zhou was that there are experts in the martial arts world who can unconsciously put strange things into our dishes. I come to check every day to be on guard against this, so it's not the fault of the chef in charge of the oil pot. We can't just open them casually. Young Master Song's expression became increasingly serious before he knew it, but unfortunately Wuxia was only surprised and didn't pay attention to this. As young Master Song spoke, he walked towards the front hall and the shopkeeper walked over and said, Master, the ceremony has ended and the banquet is open outside. How can Master have lunch? Later, let Wuxia go out of the kitchen and bring 2 light dishes to my room, so that I won't appear on the outside mat. Young Master Song thought to himself, also, don't fry anything, even if it's too oily. The shopkeeper looked bewildered, unsure of why. Also, when does the dotsai start? Young Master Song quickly changed the topic. Today, we are going to have a meal at the beginning of the banquet. The guests are all from various restaurants, and everyone understands the rules. There can be no mistakes. However, after opening according to the rules for a month, you can come to the restaurant to have a meal. I'm afraid there will be some people who don't understand the rules in the future, so it's hard to say. The big shopkeeper's expression was grim. It's okay, you need to have confidence in Master Zhou, said young Master Song with a smile. Yes, the owner and Master Zhou have already reconciled, Huzi quickly responded. What? The shopkeeper became even more confused this time. However, young Master Song has already walked away with great strides. The interior of Changqing building is magnificent, and young Master Song walks leisurely among them, like a divine being. Mr. Song's room is located on the top floor of Changqing building, which was originally the most elegant room renovation and is not included in the room service system of Changqing building. The plaque of Tingfeng Pavilion has been replaced by young Master Song in room 101, with only slight adjustments made to the elegant decoration except for the addition of a large bed. The reason for choosing this place is not only because it is relatively quiet, but also because it was caused by several assassination attempts by the Zhang family. Young Master Song sat cross-legged on the bed, slowly practicing Wudang Gong. According to young Master Song's idea, if you really encounter a strong hand and rely on the advantage of Wudang Ladder Cloud Vertical, it is still more advantageous for you to move higher and higher, at least it is more convenient to run. As for practicing martial arts, being relatively quiet and undisturbed is also a benefit. After patrolling the building, young Master Song returned to his room to rest. Of course, reading and resting are actually hard work in writing. Since the age of 5, young Master Song has secretly started learning the technique of breathing and breathing. Even on the vast Wudang Mountain, including Zhang who is known as a living immortal, Zhang Jinren has not figured out how a 5-year-old child understands the concept of internal mental skills. By the time he discovered it, he, who was still a child of Song at the time, had already mastered his internal skills, which turned out to be a pleasant surprise. Young Master Song's mother passed away early, and no one in the group of men on Wudang Mountain knew how to take care of their children. Since they had entered the sect early, they were even less guarded against young Master Song. Zhang Jinren never avoids him when he talks about scriptures or instructs his disciples. Especially since he was young Master Song loved to cry and fuss, but whenever anyone was practicing martial arts or discussing classics, he immediately fell silent. Staring at their big dripping eyes, the serious and cute elders had a bloody expression, especially effective for Zhang Jinren. So it is said that playing cute to cure all diseases. After finishing his work, young Master Song stretched a big stretch regardless of the image, and nearly twisted himself into a fried dough twists. Sitting in the flower hall slowly eating lunch, behind a beautiful screen, lunch is a plate of white-cut mutton, 2 pickled dishes, a bowl of millet porridge, 2 pancakes, a small pot of wine. As expected, there is no oil. Zhangjiakou is located in the north and is a trading city on the border with Mongolia. Lamb meat is naturally from the top grasslands, but the taste is still very different from the goat meat from Wudang Mountain. Fortunately, although old Zhou has a temper, his craftsmanship is really good. Under his management, the kitchen in Changqing building is undoubtedly the top in Zhangjiakou. The 2 pickled side dishes are also exquisitely crafted in terms of taste and style. It is the millet porridge and pancakes every day that make this young Master Song, who is used to eating rice in Wudang Mountain, still can't adapt. He always has the illusion that he is not in Hebei but in Xianxia. Why don't you come back and chat with the kitchen and make more rice in the future? Young Master Song, who had already improved his relationship with the kitchen, thought to himself. After all, it's also the largest restaurant in Zhangjiakou, so it's not so difficult to have a bowl of rice. However, the next moment, the recent multiple relationship between the rice price and noodle price quoted by the shopkeeper in the morning popped up in my mind, and I immediately dispelled the thought. It's not that I can't afford it, but I really feel like it's a trap. After eating 80% full, young Master Song poured himself a glass of wine, but he didn't just take it to his nose and smell it. It's hot and spicy, with no trace of the aroma of the wine. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com is like drinking for the first time. This made young Master Song, who ended his life due to drunk driving in his previous life, burst into tears. Many physical habits clearly did not affect his current self. Thinking about it this way, young Master Song became happy again, indicating that he is now a genuine 18-year-old boy. Young Master Song put down his dishes and drank a cup of tea, but the wine lines in his glass remained motionless. He hesitated a bit and said that he was already 18 years old and had never been exposed to alcohol in his life. Is it possible to start a martial arts? But after thinking about it, let's just forget it. Let's endure the alcohol before something big is done. He knew that big deal was a brain teaser and endured it for over a decade. Dudu, the one knocking on the door is Huzi. Boss, it's Mr. Wu's birthday celebration starting in the afternoon. The shopkeeper asked me to inform you that you need to attend and change your clothes early. Huzi said over and over again, while putting away the table. The wine hasn't moved. Does the boss think this wine is not to your taste? I'll go talk to Mr. Zhou to explain. No need, the wine is very good, and I also like it very much. Young Master Song didn't know how to explain, well. It's just that I was thinking about something while eating just now, and when I got excited, I forgot. Forget it, I'll give it to you. Really? Huzi became excited and couldn't even think about what was exciting about the matter. Well, really. Great, thank you, thank you, thank you. Huzi excitedly carried the plate and ran out. Wait, come back. Young Master Song seemed to suddenly think of something. You can have wine, but you're not allowed to drink it yourself. If you take it down and give it to anyone you like, you're not allowed to drink it yourself. Ah. Why? Huzi's life was immediately full of ups and downs. Young Master Song spoke with righteousness and righteousness, what and why? Children drinking alcohol is not good for their brains. Chapter 4. A Birthday Banquet Remembering the Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Mr. Wu is 57 years old this year. He is round and chubby, with a short beard and good spirits. However, he celebrates his 60th birthday. When young Master Song thought of this, he couldn't help but admire Mr. Wu's thick skin. Fortunately, it took 2 generations to develop from an unknown small merchant to the contemporary head of the Wu family, the largest household in Zhangjiakou. Young Master Song changed into a formal dress, wearing a black satin long gown with a mottled fox skin cloak, and a jade belt outlining his figure. My hair was also combed and washed again, and I put on a scholar's hat, looking like a wealthy young master who had read poetry and books. Unfortunately, this outfit doesn't fit very well. That is to say, young Master Song's figure is exactly what looks good in everything he wears, otherwise the effect of wearing it would be hard to say. Entering the lobby, the Wu family and the staff of the restaurant were busy inside and outside. Sitting in the upper seat, Mr. Wu was far away and came to greet him. Young Master Song is here, shining brightly. Young Master Song arched his hand and blurted out, "Happy birthday, Mr. Wu." Ah. Happy, haha. Mr. Wu was so clever that he didn't pay much attention to Mr. Song's unique birthday message. Quickly shifting the topic, "Come on, let me introduce you to this person who is." Mr. Wu introduced his business partners and sons all over. Successfully diverted everyone's attention. Young Master Song just followed and said, "I've heard so much. I feel that following Mr. Wu's greetings has made me feel more confident." In Changqing building, there was a lively atmosphere for a moment. Speaking of which, it is true that the largest shareholder of Changqing building is Mr. Song, but the Wu family still holds the shares and publicly claims that Changqing building is still an industry of the Wu family. Not to mention the management team of Changqing building, several shopkeepers, kitchen staff and staff are still elderly members of the Wu family. Mr. Wu put together the reopening of Shoushou and Changqing building, and put in a lot of effort to promote the effect. At least show the strength of the Wu family to other people in the city with different intentions. So, in the eyes of this businessman, celebrating his 60th birthday at the age of 57 is not that important. Of course, in the eyes of young Master Song, this is still a display of facial strength. Speaking of which, our old man, who was favored by Zhang Jinren of Wudang and established a sect on Wudang Mountain, once accompanied me to observe the ceremony. It was truly a grand occasion in the martial arts world. Wu boasted in front of his children and grandchildren, his expression beaming. Indeed, the reputation of Wudang Mountain is actually an implicit talisman for the development of the Wu family from childhood to adulthood. However, young Master Song knew in his heart that many years ago, the Third Lord did indeed guide the old man of the Wu family. When Wudang was established, it was unprecedentedly prosperous in the martial arts world. Has Mr. Wu and his old father come to observe? Perhaps so. However, even if you ask Sanyi now, 80% of him will still say, "Do you have it?" Maybe he does. As he gets older, his memory is not good, and he's a bit senile. Then he, laughs uncontrollably. Unfortunately, for the time being, young Master Song still has a cooperative relationship with the Wu family. What does it mean that a strong dragon does not suppress a local snake? Right. Only Mr. Wu, who is celebrating his birthday and cannot be killed, is called a local snake. Mr. Zhang, who has already passed his 7th year, can at best be called Ling Tu Qin or a rising bird. So, regardless of whether Third Lord remembers or not, young Master Song, a distant relative of this sect, still helped Third Lord recognize it. Anyway, it doesn't hurt to sell my land as a child. In the future, when the Wu family encounters problems, their father and his companions will come forward to take care of them. The Wu family took out most of the shares in Changqing building and made a deal with Mr. Song for this very reason. Young Master Song was full of malicious thoughts, thinking that in a sense, the Wu family really made a lot of money. Especially, in private, Mr. Wu calls out to senior brother Song one by one, and every time he's covered in goosebumps. A banquet is not boring for young Master Song, let alone he doesn't drink at all now. Mr. Wu wanted to invite him to the main table, but he refused. He didn't come to Zhangjiakou to show off, so he was assigned to a table among the younger generation. However, a group of bear kids, the older one is learning how to be a hypocrite, and the younger one is still clamoring to see young Master Song demonstrate his divine skills. Not a single one looks interesting. So after sitting for a while, young Master Song found an excuse to sneak into the kitchen. "Boss. What's up?" Zhou, who was busy directing him into the battlefield, wiped his oily hands with his apron and walked up to young Master Song, surrounded by towering beacon smoke and fire. "It's okay, I'll just take a look." Young Master Song wrinkled his nose and smiled as he stared at the busy figures of the chefs. What? Mr. Zhou suspected that the sound of stir-frying was too loud, causing his hearing to drop prematurely. However, he didn't have time to distinguish it, so he yelled at a group of chefs, "Set the plate, hurry up, why haven't you finished it yet, don't you want to do it?" He then lifted his leg and kicked it over with the butt of a chef, but his leg was in mid-air. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, he remembered that his boss was right behind him, which was somewhat awkward. After hesitating for a moment, the chef calmly avoided it and could only awkwardly say, "Next time, be careful." Young Master Song quickly helped old Master Zhou and joked, "It's okay, just kick if you want. Don't worry about me." The kitchen was bustling with activity, and Mr. Zhou was really busy directing the chefs. Since the owner said it was okay, he didn't have the heart to inquire for the time being. I quickly returned to working mode. At the same time, he commands and occasionally gives a few pointers. And young Master Song can be considered as the first time he has walked into the kitchen of his own restaurant with integrity. The exquisite dishes I eat every day, and the mysterious flavors all come from here. Watching the chefs handle the ingredients cleanly and skillfully, tofu blooms into a holy flower in the delicate knife technique. The whole meat cutlet was taken out of the cage, and the water vapor dissipated, revealing a crystal-clear color. From the knife table to cooking, serving dishes, and setting plates, the chefs were working nervously, and behind them was an old man who constantly made trouble. He scolded and taught the chefs, gesturing and gesturing, but it didn't sound like a single step. It's like a flamboyant conductor conducting a special piece of music. Da-da-da, da-da-da, the knife is chopping on the case. Screaming, rumbling, oil hissing in the pot. Bang, 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 fire roaring in the furnace. All of this is much more interesting than those hypocritical greetings and awkward conversations outside. Young Master Song was mesmerized by the sight, as a plump fish was heavily slapped on the chopping board, struggling to flap its tail and splash some mercury. The chef's hand was steady as he swung his knife and chopped it off. With a loud bang, the door of the kitchen was knocked open. "Boss, boss, it's not good anymore." Huzi gasped for breath as he pressed his hands on his knees. "Quick, fast, fast. Go take a look, it's starting to fight." Chapter 5. Opening up and smashing the scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the lobby on the first floor of Changqing building is illuminated by red candles. A top-quality blue and white porcelain wine glass flew into the air under the tense gaze of people. The body of the glass was about to tilt, and the wine in the glass was about to spill and drip like dew, or like tears hanging but not dripping. It reflected the panicked expressions of the scattered people in the hall, which then stretched and became frightened. The spectators on other floors, on the other hand, had already stretched their necks, widened their eyes, and opened their mouths to show a nervous and concerned expression, and were once again pleasantly surprised by this drop of wine. The wine glass was thrown high, and it was still rising. Some people didn't notice it, while others stared at it intently, their necks changing angles with the height of the wine glass. Looking at its jade-like color and delicate cicada wings, it was also dyed with a layer of redness by the festive decorations inside the building. It rose to the extreme and suddenly broke neatly into 3 sections, with the rim and belly forming 2 slightly tilted rings. Wine falls from the sky. A young swordsman wearing a bamboo hat stepped on a pillar in the hall and glared with force, piercing a dazzling sword. His eyes are as delicate and radiant as his sword. At this moment, the radiance was locked onto a bearded man wearing a white leather robe. This person held a knife and lightly touched the blade with the blade, then whirlwind-like hid behind a nearby table. Then half of the table was cut off along with the legs of the table, and a table of delicious dishes clanked and scattered all over the ground. The young swordsman in the bamboo hat shouted loudly, but unfortunately it was all some incomprehensible southern dialect, probably used for cursing. The white-robed bearded man took the opportunity to jump onto a chair, stepped on the back of the chair with one foot and supported his knee. He pointed his knife at the swordsman and cursed from a high position, "What the hell are you doing? Your father didn't teach you how to speak." The young man with a bamboo hat waved and stabbed, and his big beard quickly jumped to another table next to him. He picked up a large bowl of boiled lamb and threw it at the young man with a bamboo hat. The hot red oil danced between the two. The young man with a bamboo hat didn't dodge, his long sword turned into a sword net, like a small boat breaking through the waves, tearing open this bowl of lamb and soup, without any soup on his body. Finally, he cut open the bowl that flew over with a single sword, with a smooth and clean cut. The young swordsman then cursed in awkward Mandarin, "Old thief, I will take your head today." As he spoke, the long sword in his hand suddenly stirred, as if a sword net had suddenly unfolded, enveloping his white beard. The flowing light from this sword is so mysterious and transcendental that it seems to envelop the candlelight lights of carved beams and painted rafters in a room and people's attention, including all the escape routes of white clothes and beards. Big Beard stopped in his tracks with a solemn expression. The blade stirred the air as if it was about to tear off his beard one by one from his face. As he was about to crash into the sword net, he suddenly struck with a knife. This knife seemed to exhaust all his energy, and it also seemed as if life was unpredictable and unpredictable. The collision of swords emitted a piercing roar, and then he emerged from the sky full of sword shadows and let out a long sigh. "Oh my, it's so scary." Then, continue running. Run over the table, run over the fence, run over the counter, run over the potted plants, and then leave the ground in a mess. The two of them were happily chasing each other, and the small wind blowing under the plaque in the hall seemed to struggle to break through the paper and escape, fearing something. Suddenly, a bowl of pickled cucumbers slammed onto the edge of the top taxi, and it remained motionless as if dead. When young Master Song arrived at the hall, he could only sigh deeply. How could he achieve such a success in the blink of an eye? "Today is my first day of business." He squinted his eyes carefully and observed these two people, with his hands naturally behind his back. Fortunately, he still had a bottom line. Two people were shouting loudly and running around in the hall, one shouting, "Don't leave, evil thief." The other responded, "Follow me again, I'll cut you off." Whenever they approach the crowd on one side of the hall, it triggers a panic, while the people on the other side will take a little breath of relief. Big Beard never takes the initiative to take cover for crowds, even if occasionally forced to be by the side of fleeing guests. The sword edge of the young man in a bamboo hat will intentionally restrain and avoid the crowd, which is completely different from his attitude towards tables and chairs. Young Master Song saw Huzi anxiously and eagerly looking towards him, nodded and whispered, "Almost there." Then he took his steps. 2 heroes, that's almost it. Young Master Song walked slowly to the edge of the field, his hands arched up in a polite manner. However, the two of them, who were engaged in a fierce battle, only paused for a moment to glance at the young man in a black robe who had emerged from nowhere, and then continued their battle without taking young Master Song's words seriously. "I am one of the owners of this shop. The two of you are fighting here, searching for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to break something and disturb the customers. It is against chivalrous principles." Young Master Song did not step forward, but only spoke in an official tone. This time, the two of them stopped and looked around for a sudden realization, seemingly realizing how much evil they had done. The young man in a bamboo hat glared at the white-robed bearded man and said, "It's all you villains, let's go. Let's go out and fight." The bearded man quickly glared back, "I can't kill you." As he spoke, the two of them were about to leave. Suddenly, the young man with a bamboo hat seemed to remember something again. He reached out and took out a large ingot of silver from his arms. The hero boldly threw it into the air and loudly said, "Here's the money for you. If you have more, you can compensate." He didn't turn around and continued walking outside. Not in a hurry. But to his surprise, the young man in black had already stood at the entrance at some point, smiling at the two of them. He held the silver he had just thrown out with one hand, and the other hand was carried backwards. The young man in the bamboo hat felt a chill, how fast his body movements were. He instinctively made a gesture of swordsmanship and said, "Do you have anything else to do? It's not a big deal either." Young Master Song's hand, holding the silver, silently brushed lightly on the spine of his sword. The swordsman's long sword in his hand came out as if electrocuted, like a lightning bolt nailed to the white-robed bearded face that seemed to want to slip away. The slender eyes of the young man with a bamboo hat have all widened, and his internal skills are probably not much lower than his master's. "You two are not in a hurry, it's about compensation matters. This account needs to be calculated slowly." Young Master Song waved to the shopkeeper who was hiding in the crowd, gesturing for him to bring an abacus and say, "Today the guest is hosting a banquet here, with a relatively high standard. This table of dishes is only 20 taels. You can see from the menu, as our store clearly lists prices and won't bully you. Before and after this incident, the two of them knocked over 20.1 tables of wine and food in the lobby on the first floor, which is 40.2 taels. The shopkeeper's abacus played with a clattering sound. Chapter 6. Don't fight without money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, my store has reopened, and the tables, chairs, and furniture are all new. A chair like this, including wood and wages, costs 2 liang, and a table comes with 10 chairs. This large round table was ordered from Bianliang City and arrived only a few days ago. Including shipping costs, it costs 20 liang. The tableware is top-quality Jingdezhen porcelain, and when it comes down to this table, it costs 16 liang and 5 liang. The big shopkeeper's small abacus clattered again, causing a commotion. The two of you have also seen that the store has just been renovated according to the highest standards in Bianliang, Tokyo. Both the craftsmen and materials come from Bianliang City, and this hall is only 800 liang. After all this fuss, my hall needs to be renovated again, and the fastest decoration period is also 20 days. If there are not enough materials, I need to reorder from Bianliang, and every time I come and go, I also need to calculate my daily business flow. The shopkeeper's small calculation has been going on for a long time. Whether it's a young man in a bamboo hat or a bearded man in white, they all feel that every sound of this abacus ball makes their hearts twitch. Today, an elderly person celebrated their birthday here, and two of them disturbed the guests. I not only have to refund the money but also compensate for their mental damages. In addition, today is my first day of business, and I have encountered this kind of thing. No one will dare to come to my store in the future. This invisibly has an impact on the reputation of the small shop and the future business. How much does it cost, shopkeeper? The young man in a bamboo hat trembled and asked a question he didn't want to know the answer, but he didn't dare not ask. Big Beard also agreed, as he listened to Master Song's calculations and stood straight. However, young Master Song still carried his hands lightly, gesturing to wait for the big shopkeeper to finish his calculations. After a while, the big shopkeeper cleared his throat and said, "Master, there are a total of 26,006 taels." Young Master Song almost heard the sound of something shattering in the chest of the young man with a bamboo hat and the bearded man. "Forget it, wipe away the rest, it's only 2,600 taels. I'll take a loss of 600 taels and don't want it, so each of them is 1,300 taels. Then he weighed the ingot of silver in his hand and said to the young man with a bamboo hat, "You still owe 1280 taels of this 20 taels. You." The young man in the bamboo hat remembered his bold words just now, and his face felt a tinge of fierceness. "Shop owner, because I am tracking this evil thief, I have kept all the silver coins in the inn for my senior brother to keep." The more he said, the more he became less confident, and he dried 300 taels. If this were to be revealed to his master, he wouldn't dare to think further. Ha ha ha. Unlike the sorrow of the young man with a bamboo hat, Big Beard suddenly burst out laughing grandly. "How much money am I thinking about? Here you are, I've found the pump." Then he took out 5 gold ingots from his arms. The gold ingots were not big but quite heavy, and Big Beard carried heavy gold in his arms. His body movements were still so flexible, and this lightness skill was really quite good. The shopkeeper's verification showed that there were enough gold and 2 taels, totaling 150 taels of gold. Big Beard grinned at young Master Song and said, "Where can we go now?" Young Master Song smiled and cleared the way, with one hand swiping in front of him. He bowed slightly and said, "Sir, please take your time. Welcome back." His beard pushed aside the long sword that was nailed in front of him and glanced at the young man in a bamboo hat. "You don't have money, why are you fighting?" He then ran away and disappeared in a flash. On the quiet and pitch-black street outside the door, a happy echo came. "No money, what kind of fight are you fighting?" What kind of fight are you fighting? Is rice righteous? Young Master Song only thought the name sounded familiar, but couldn't recall hearing it somewhere. You said he was a great villain, so what crimes did he commit? The young man with a bamboo hat glared angrily at the young master of song. He said that he called me Wei and was a disciple of Lu Zhengfeng from the Hengshan sect of Nanyue. He and his senior brother chased down a big villain and came here after many twists and turns. Mi Wei said angrily, this person's surname is Hu. 20 years ago, he killed a family of 13 people surnamed Shang in Shandong. A few years ago, he set fire to the village where the rest of the Shang family had settled because he was worried about the Shang family's revenge. Hundreds of people in the village were burned alive. I tracked down this evil thief with my senior brother and finally found his whereabouts. However, I didn't want to be released by you, a profit-seeking and unscrupulous businessman, for a small amount of silver. I'll fight with you. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. Suddenly, as if he couldn't control himself, he punched young Master Song. Unfortunately, although his swordsmanship was superb, was his martial arts impressive. Young Master Song casually wrote with his left hand, reaching out to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com as if waving goodbye and pushing his fist away. Then, as if it were an old friend's persuasion and comfort, he patted his shoulder, and Mi Wei stood unsteadily and sat down on the ground. Young Master Song laughed heartily and said, in just such a short amount of time, I have become a profit-seeking, unscrupulous businessman. In my prime, I have to take responsibility for what I say, and if I can't provide evidence, I will sue you for defamation. As for the guy you're talking about, how old do you think he is? Young Master Song looked at Mi Wei sitting on the ground with a hint of amusement and said, didn't you see that? The guy just now had a fake beard. Despite his strong physique, he was just wearing a thick sheepskin coat, and his voice was deliberately hoarse. If he died, he would be 16 or 17 years old. Young Master Song pulled out Mi Wei's long sword from the door frame and said, why do you think he always fights with you, but rarely confronts you head-on? It's not that his internal strength is not as good as yours, otherwise with his lightness, skill and body method, you would have been knocked down long ago. So you said he killed the whole family 20 years ago. Even if he gave birth to a son at the age of 14, he is only 2 or 3 years old this year. May I ask if he urinated on your bed or wiped your nose with his sleeve when committing the crime? Is this kind of crime committed by the vertical sun? Young Master Song puffed his cheeks and said, isn't it like this? It's super fierce, super terrifying. How do you explain that when he made a move, it was 5 ingots of gold, which must be stolen goods? Mi argued with a teasing tone on his neck. How to explain it? Just explain it, if someone has money, they deserve to die. It's just stolen or snatched, right? Young Master Song frowned. Then you make a move for 20 taels of silver, and an ordinary person can't afford 1 or 2 taels of silver a year. Is that because your money is also stolen or snatched? It's stolen. What kind of filthy mentality is this? Tell me, your senior brother lives at that inn, and I'll have someone notify him to settle the bill. Then he inserted his sword into Mi Wei's scabbard. Chapter 7. Dreaming Back to Wudang Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Xiang Danian's head hurts very much, not because he drank too much alcohol, but because he has a junior brother named Mi Wei, who is a straightforward child. Also, because his junior brother just owed 1280 taels of silver to the owner of Changqing building, as a responsible and righteous senior brother, he felt the need for a plaster to reduce fire to be applied to his temples. If his head was not very painful and he frowned, then he could be considered a pretty person. At the age of 20.7 or 8, his white face and slight beard appeared quite cultured. But even a person with good manners cannot resist a junior brother who can compensate 1282 taels in one night, especially when he has no money. Xiang Danian sat on the second floor of Changqing building, where he could see his junior brother's crime scene more intuitively. The smile of the black-robed boy lying on the rocking chair in front of him gave him inexplicable pressure. My junior brother doesn't believe that his internal strength is not weaker than that of his master Xiang Danian, but he subdued him with just one move. Xiang Danian asked himself that he couldn't do it, and he definitely couldn't beat such a person. The guys on the first floor are tidying up the broken and tragic ground. Taking a glance at Din Yen, he remembered that he had also been at the tavern before. Every time he casually threw 3 to 5 taels to level things up, why could a total of 1,208 taels come out this time? That's because their boss can't afford to provoke you, so it's already generous for you to compensate a little. This is still their full payment operation. If it's a loan operation, do you know how much loss it would cause to people if they shut down for a day? The last wealthy and happy family, just because their family was ruined and their wife and children were separated, is it because of your so-called chivalrous and righteous behavior? Young Master Song felt that Xiang Danian's name was more familiar, and he was Lu Jingfeng's disciple of the Hengshan sect. Lu Jingfeng. Young Master Song vaguely remembered that at the Lu Jingfeng Golden Bowl handwashing ceremony, there seemed to be a Hengshan disciple who was taking over Lu Jingfeng's windshield knife. Is that him? So, do you have any relatives or friends in this household? Let's see if we can make it together. Young Master Song glanced at all the wealth that Xiang Danian had gathered, totaling 37,829 yuan plus over 100 won. Well, I only have so much left. How about the shop owner allowing my brother to return to the Hengyang school to get the silver? Don't, Hengyang is thousands of miles away based on this. If you don't come back after you leave, who should I go to? And how many days will it take for you to come back this time? Even if I only calculate half of the interest for you, you will have to turn around and say that I am offering high-interest loans, which is absolutely unacceptable. Young Master Song quickly interrupted Xiang Danian's words. I have no choice but to stay here as collateral and let my junior brother go back to withdraw money. He's the mastermind, what's the point of withholding you? Young Master Song waved his hand. Then let me stay. Senior brother, you can go back and collect the money. Mi Wei quickly interjected, I can't do it alone. If I have to kill or cut, I'll do whatever I want. Hey, is this a trick of asking for money without a deadly one? Young Master Song sat up from the rocking chair, why do I want your life? Seeing the two brothers in a dilemma, young Master Song laughed and said, all right, why don't you two work with me first, use the wages to offset the account, and then slowly think of a way to send a letter to the sect, asking your master to remit the money. I'm not willing to do this. Do you have the ability to smash the store but not the ability to work and repay the money? Young Master Song stared. No, it's just. The senior brothers hesitated and stuttered. What's wrong, you're scared now. Oh, by the way, isn't your 5 sacred sword sect united? Why don't you see the sect nearby? I'll send someone to deliver it to you by writing a letter. Young Master Song suddenly felt that this deduction of people would make people feel very happy. Senior brother, if Master finds out about this, he must kill me, otherwise. Mi looked at senior brother pleadingly. Okay, I'll write this letter to the shopkeeper. Xiang Danian felt that his life suddenly felt as cold as the weather in Zhangjiakou. From now on, the two of you should call me boss. I'll cover everything, including food and accommodation. I'll let the shopkeeper explain the specific salary and working hours to you in detail when I get back. So, 2 new dishwashers with southern accents arrived in the kitchen of Changqing building. More than half a month has passed in a blink of an eye, and the brief sunny day in Zhangjiakou has also passed in a blink of an eye. The dark clouds, like the long hair of girls, covered the sky, gloomy as if they were about to fall down at any moment, making it difficult for people to catch their breath. Young Master Song sat at the head of Changqing building as usual, quietly listening to the shopkeeper reading the accounts, occasionally missing a few words, but recently he has been somewhat absent-minded. "Boss, the price you mentioned the day before yesterday." The shopkeeper noticed that the boss, who never forgets to make mistakes, had made a mistake in his account today. "Oh, really?" Young Master Song smiled. "It's okay, you keep going." "Is there anything on my mind lately, my boss?" The shopkeeper cautiously greeted me. "My boss seems to be looking a bit haggard these days." Since the day of opening, the owner personally took action to sanction those two troublemakers in the martial arts world. The business of Changqing Tower has not only not deteriorated but also improved compared to before, which has led to the restaurant's daily work being busier than usual. Even some martial arts figures, upon hearing rumors, came specifically to see their masters, but the masters refused to see them, which added a touch of mystery to the Changqing Tower. Some say that the landlord is an unfathomable and unparalleled expert, while others say that the landlord is the illegitimate child of a certain martial arts aristocratic family. There are even legends that the landlord is a noble and cold beauty. He sought out the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to capture the hearts of two great heroes with his amazing beauty. This is not the most ridiculous thing. The most ridiculous thing is that someone came to ask for the cost of injury medicine, and it turned out that someone called themselves a disciple of Changqing Tower and hit someone and ran away. A good restaurant, in legend, has become a mysterious and unpredictable martial arts sect. Therefore, there are those who come to learn from their masters, as well as those who want to join the organization. In the first few days, the shopkeeper was careless and even took in several martial arts experts as runners. Later, it was discovered by young Master Song that they had all been fired. The shopkeeper increasingly felt that the owner of Changqing building was becoming more and more difficult, so he advised from the bottom of his heart, if the owner feels unwell, take more rest in the next few days. Young Master Song smiled awkwardly, adding a hint of haggardness. "It's okay, it's okay. Last night, he didn't sleep well and had a dream all night. He dreamed that he had returned to Wudang Mountain again, when the third master celebrated his 90th birthday. Two guests who came to celebrate their birthday chatted happily together, and one of them, a skinny old man, practiced a set of swordsmanship. This swordsmanship was full of fairy-like charm and exquisite sharpness. The old man's name is Mei Niansheng, a famous hero of the Xiaoxiang generation. He often comes to Wudang Mountain as a guest and is also quite familiar with young Master Song. And the other person is a middle-aged Taoist, holding a large vat with one hand to practice a set of martial arts, as if fighting with many people. Young Master Song is certain that he is not a Taoist from Wudang Mountain, but he can't remember his name for a moment. The Taoist and the old man waved at young Master Song when they saw him. Just as young Master Song was about to go over and ask for their advice, the two of them smiled and arched their hands at each other, seemingly saying congratulations. Surrounded by people blowing and beating around him, a covered bride appeared next to him as soon as he turned around. Without lifting the cover, young Master Song felt very clear that the bride's name was Zhou Jiruo. Chapter 8. The Hardest Waiting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Young Master Song reached out to pull the bride, but suddenly a shameless boy appeared from somewhere and stopped him. It was as if there were 9 suns shining strongly from behind, making his shadow appear incredibly huge. Young Master Song tried to push him away, but he couldn't do it. The young man stood still like a big mountain. The boy tried his best to slap but was of no use. He stood quietly, his hair pointing straight at the ground without moving. Later on, young Master Song found himself lying on the hospital bed, with Third Master sitting by the bed. He wanted to tell him if Third Master had been doing well lately, but found that he couldn't open his mouth or move. The Third Master still looked very kind. He looked at himself kindly for a long time, and brushed his face gently, just as he brushed his palm on the face of Master Zhang and the sword of Mi Wei. After young Master Song woke up, he lit the lamp and wanted to write a letter to his father to third master. However, when he picked up his pen, he only wrote 16 words. After leaving home for many years, everything is safe, day and night I study hard, and I dare not slack off. Knead the letter paper into a ball, but couldn't sleep anymore. Young Master Song knew that he had laughed countless times about his past life, and that Song Qingshu was a good player who played poorly. But now he felt a little anxious in his heart. Can he change his life 10 years later? Wash your face. Yes. Young Master Song has a big plan in his heart. He can not only change it, but also win and be beautiful. This grand plan, which has been prepared for many years, is now fully prepared and only one person is owed. After finishing the account, the shopkeeper left with some helplessness. He heard the owner murmuring in a low voice, "Red Ma black wine, Red Ma black wine," and felt a pang of heartache in his heart. Although the owner is highly skilled in martial arts, he is still only a young man of 18 or 19 years old. In terms of age, he is a nephew. The shopkeeper decided to take on more trivial matters in the future, so that the owner could also go shopping on the streets like a playboy and even search for girls in the building. Young Master Song stood up and went to patrol the building alone, but Huzi did not follow him. A month ago, young Master Song gave Huzi a top-secret task, asking him to wait for someone at the city gate every day. He told Huzi that as soon as that person appeared, he would follow him to see which store he entered, and then have someone rush back to inform him as quickly as possible, and this matter must be kept confidential. When he walked to the kitchen, Mr. Zhou brought out a bowl of lotus seed 8 treasures soup. Lotus seeds were refreshing and soothing, while 8 treasures were made by combining different medicinal herbs according to the recipe. In recent days, the boss has been increasingly haggard, and Mr. Zhou has also noticed it. At first, the boss would set aside a period of time every day to come to the kitchen. It wasn't long before Mr. Zhou could see that the boss was here to steal his teacher and learn art. The trouble he caused himself was just an excuse. But Mr. Zhou thought to himself, why steal this thing? If you want to run a good restaurant, if the owner doesn't understand any culinary skills, it must be a joke. So when the boss came back, Mr. Zhou began to intentionally or unintentionally make more detailed and tedious comments on various dishes, sometimes like talking to himself, actually speaking to young Master Song. Young Master Song understood, and the two of them maintained a considerable period of tacit understanding. But later on, young Master Song gradually became busier and had less time to come to the kitchen. Although he always comes here with great care, Master Zhou Ziming can see that his master has other worries, so Master Song starts to have some tonic diet and tonic dishes for his 3 meals a day. How have the 2 brothers who wash dishes been lately? Those 2 kids are good, diligent and meticulous, without any complaints. They took the initiative to help with the loading and unloading of the truck this morning, which made me so angry. One person is like 8 people. Old Zhou praised the 2 brothers from the Hengshan sect in Nanyue. Of course, both of them have excellent internal skills and fiery swordsmanship. You haven't trained them to cut and prepare vegetables, otherwise, young Master Song smiled weakly. The Hengshan brothers are so honest. They thought leaving them in the kitchen would lead them to escape, but they didn't expect to integrate into the kitchen in just a few days. Not only are the bowls done well, but their feet are agile and delicate, and they are also kind. They didn't originally arrange anything else for them, so the 2 of them often engage in behaviors that are selfless and specifically beneficial to others. This surprised young Master Song. He had talked to them twice, but Xiang Danian held the rice as a gesture of righteousness and refused to speak. The 2 senior brothers spoke in unison without saying anything, and young Master Song had no choice but to let them do it. Watching his master finish a whole bowl of lotus seed soup, Mr. Zhou said, when it comes to making soup, the most important thing is to boil it. There is no way to cook it until the heat is too hot. After the heat has passed, it loses its flavor. Sometimes, I'm worried that my disciples won't handle it well. The one standing next to me is the one who can endure the most. Then he turned around and left. Young Master Song felt a bit confused in his heart. He didn't understand this truth and didn't want to personally guard the city gate. However, he was worried that during the time he stepped out, he might have gone astray with Huzi or the people arranged for him at other city gates. It doesn't matter if anything else goes wrong, but if this matter goes wrong, go to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, and then when young Master Song walked to the gate, he looked at the high threshold but did not step out. He arranged for people to watch over the 4 doors for him, but he did not cross this threshold. At most, it's like this now, leaning forward and looking at the lonely end of the street in front of the door, people hurriedly walking expressionlessly on the street. Suddenly, young Master Song's eyes flickered with light, and at the end of that sad, stone lion-like blind eye, a shiny hairstyle appeared, reflecting the ambiguous worldly affairs on this street. That was a tall nun, draped in a dark grey long-sleeved robe, walking on this almost windless long street, stretching and imposing in the wind. Behind her were 4 little nuns, wearing thick cotton hats and carrying standardized long swords. This is the nuns approached Master Song's increasingly bright gaze and stopped in front of him. The tall female nun leading the way looked up at the plaque of Changqing building and walked towards the door. At the moment of entering the threshold, the nun and young Master Song's gaze collided. Her height was half a head higher than that of young Master Song, and her commanding glance was full of heroism and sharpness. Her eyes are big and beautiful, so beautiful that one may overlook her almost 40-year-old age, and so beautiful that one may forget her status as a nun. Young Master Song thinks she must have been very beautiful when she was young, right? She is also very beautiful now, with fair skin, an elegant neck, and beautiful ears. The loose robe has no winter clothing significance. In the early spring weather of the northern region, you cannot see any trace of cold wind on her skin, so the conclusion that young Master Song can draw is that her internal strength must be very deep. The nun hurriedly brushed past young Master Song and strode towards the center of the hall with a majestic voice, saying, "Hengshan Dingy, come and pay respects." Chapter 9. The Abbess knocks on the door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, damn it, young Master Song almost stumbled and fell outside the door. It's only a matter of a few hundred taels of silver. Would you like to invite such a large bodhisattva from the 5 mountains sword sect down the mountain? Young Master Song immediately gave the shopkeeper a stern glance. She was a top-notch expert in the 5 mountains sword sect, one of the 3 constables in the Baiyun Temple of the Hanging Temple in the North Mountains, and the top hitman of the Hengshan sect. She had a fiery nature and a strong hatred for evil, while also exhibiting obvious menopausal characteristics. Putting aside the full sense of justice and the unruly middle-aged and elderly version of the priestess, the key is that I can't beat her. Just with such a large amount of information, the big shopkeeper clearly couldn't understand it with just one glance. When he walked up to Abbess Dingy and greeted her too briefly, it was obvious that he treated Abbess Dingy as an ordinary Jianghu guest. Recently, there have been quite a few people like this. With different purposes, the big shopkeeper has received many of them and just wants to say some good things. At best, they can treat them to a meal. Anyway, they are monks. How much can they afford to eat? However, Abbess Dingy clearly didn't buy it. Tell your master to come out. Today, I want to see how powerful and domineering this Changqing building is, and who dares to take my Dingy's nephew. Just say I'm not here. Young Master Song quickly gestured to the shopkeeper. Young Master Song felt his headache rising. It must have been because he didn't sleep well last night. Abbess Dingy is not the kind of thug from the 2 major families in Zhangjiakou or someone like Mi Wei. Young Master Song looked at the back of the abbess and sat down gracefully at a table in front of the door, pouring a cup of tea. He needed to sort out his thoughts carefully, or perhaps just pretend to be a scenery. Not here. If not, go find it quickly, otherwise I will demolish your black shop today. Abbess Dingy said as if a bodhisattva had dropped his wisdom sword and opened a square table with one palm. Go ahead, don't blame me for demolishing it too quickly if you slow down. Ha! This formation clearly made the shopkeeper a bit panicked, so he could only seek help from young Master Song's gaze. Young Master Song playfully curved the corners of his mouth. Abbess Dingy is a hot-tempered person, but after all, she is not an extinct abbess. Young Master Song remembered when he played chess with Third Master when he was a child. He was actually playing chess while using Third Master as a companion to practice his soft palms. Once, Third Master played tricks, relying on his comprehensive advantages in height, arm length, and strength, and even without following the rules, he pushed his palm with a straight bar. At that time, Song Xiaopenyu was very angry and cried with the Third Master. The Third Master said, "It's better for others to be stronger than you to avoid. Martial arts moves are the wisdom of predecessors, but if you make yourself stupid, how can you blame the predecessors?" Yes, just dodge, so young Master Song gestured to the shopkeeper and asked her to dismantle them one by one. If she wants to dismantle it, let her first dismantle it to vent her anger. Let's talk slowly when her anger subsides. Let her compensate as much as she can dismantle it. Young Master Song felt that hiding like this was not enough. It was best to stay away from the scene, as the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. He stood up and walked to the doorstep again, his eyes hesitating. What if Wuxia came back at this moment? Looking up, perhaps you can first go to the eaves outside the door to see the scenery for a while. I have made up my mind that young Master Song has finally taken his own steps in front of the threshold. Perhaps we can go to the eaves outside the door to enjoy the scenery for a while. Boss, here we are. Wuxia laughed loudly like a blooming flower, bouncing and jumping all the way to him. Shoo, don't talk. Young Master Song's eyes widened and he was startled, staring at the tiger. At the other end of the hall, Abbess Dingy slowly turned her face and said, Young Master Song elegantly turned around, revealing a calm yet awkward smile. Now, how can we communicate with the person in front of us? Boss. Wuxia looked at young Master Song in surprise. Young Master Song immediately stopped his gaze and said, Don't speak until you have finished dealing with this person. Then he turned around and slowly walked towards the tall nun. So, Abbess, I have something to talk to you about, but before I do, I have a small request. Say it. Abbess Dingy looked up and down at young Master Song, the beautiful young man wearing a black brocade robe looking calm and composed. That's right, I hope the abbess doesn't get angry after listening, shows mercy to others, and doesn't resort to violence. It's easy to discuss. The young man respectfully bowed to her. Abbess Dingy frowned and suddenly raised her voice by an eighth. So, before I finish listening to this, I can beat people up as I please. She said with a single palm of her eyes, as if she had picked up a 200-pound frying pan and was about to slap it. I finally can't fit it this time. Young Master Song was like a black cat with its tail stepped on. The latter cloud leaped up in the air and climbed onto the beam of the hall, shouting loudly, Go and call Xiang Danny and me for righteousness. Tell them not to wash dishes anymore. Their relatives are here. At the same time, Abbess Dingy stood up like a gray eagle and rushed towards him, saying, Stinky kid, hide your head and show your tail. Young Master Song wrapped the collar of his black robe around his waist and ran around the beam, glaring and shouting, Abbess, we are doing a good job with Denyen Mi Wei Yi. Our Changqing building is a conscientious business with complete documents, legal operation, and timely tax payment. We never withhold employee salaries and often engage in charitable and public welfare activities. We are not the rumored tyrants in the martial arts world, let alone bullying male and female bullies. Before she could say anything, Abbess E had already arrived in front of us, and she slapped her head in the face for a moment. With 5 strikes, young Master Song had no choice but to block and retreat in succession. The fists of both sides intersected, making a muffled sound of long passes. Being forced to the end of the crossbeam, as the last palm struck, young Master Song didn't know if he had slipped or intentionally fallen off the beam. With a single palm, Abbess Dingy cleared the air and lowered her head to see young Master Song holding onto the crossbeam. She flipped over and leaped towards the fence on the 3rd floor, shouting, "Abbess, it's a wise lesson. How did I hear that the owner of Changqing building is not here?" Abbess Dingy's face was frosty. "Who are you?" As she spoke, she jumped over and used the Tianchong palm technique of the Hengshan sect to open and close. A few leaps on the beam fence gave a feeling of floating clouds beyond the sky. Young Master Song stepped on the fence and ran straight away. The fence, which was not even stable for an ordinary person to stand on, was like walking on a flat ground under his feet. And with just one leap, Abbess Dingy could match several steps of young Master Song, seemingly with a low frequency. In an instant, she was about to catch up with the agile black-robed boy who was running away like a cat. Young Master Song ran to the edge of the stairs, slid down the handrail, and dodged the abbess's palm. Turning over to the 2nd floor, he breathed a sigh of relief and shouted, "Young Master Song Qingshu, this is the owner of Changqing building." Dingy's shirt chased after him too closely, and his 2 palms launched a series of attacks. Young Master Song had to turn back and defend himself, pushing his palms out to face the palm of his master. With a gentle touch, he borrowed force and bounced towards the 3rd floor, grabbing the fence and flipping over to continue running. "Humph, a bunch of nonsense. No, I said I am the owner of Changqing building. What nonsense is there? They can all testify to me. Why don't I show you the land deed?" Unfortunately, young Master Song only dares to say this in his own heart. He is still running away.